My name is Shannon Gallo. I am the Manager of Career Services at CUNY SPS. If this is the first webinar from our Career Services office you're joining us for, I hope you enjoy it. And if you've attended previous webinars, I hope that you find this one worthwhile like you have many of the others. I will be the moderator for today's webinar, so you won't hear too much from me, but I will do my best to make sure that the panelists are able to really share their career narratives and help all of you with some great advice for your careers. A couple of housekeeping items before we move ahead. If you have any technical trouble using the GoToWebinar system, the recommendation is for you to call 1-800-263-6317, then press 1 for GoToWebinar, then 2 for tech support. If you would like to ask questions today, and we certainly encourage you to do so, you would use the chat field in your control panel. It looks similar to the pictures that are on your screen if you're using a Mac or a PC. I do understand that you're also able to join these programs from a tablet or a smartphone, so hopefully the way in which you would send in questions using one of those devices is also pretty easy. We encourage you to send in your questions at any point during today's webinar. You'll hear from our three panelists first, and then we'll do questions. So please send them in at any point, and I have two fantastic colleagues that will be helping so that we're able to address those. Thank you to Darian Robinson and Kelsey Richardson for their help this morning. Lastly, we are offering a live stream of captions from today's webinar. So there is a link at the bottom of your screen which you can go to if you would like to take advantage of the captions. We will also be recording today's webinar and posting it along with those captions to the YouTube page. So be on the lookout for that. So without any further ado, let's get started. The first thing that will happen today, you will get an opportunity to meet our panelists. And when I say meet, I mean you'll hear from each of them directly, giving their career narratives and their stories. And then, as I said before, we'll go through the Q&A next. So without any further ado, let me turn things over to our first panelist, our business industry insider, Mike Mannix.
Good morning, Shannon. Thank you so much for having me here. So excited to be a part of this. And good morning, everyone. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background. I will try not to make it sound like a Mike Mannix commercial, and I'll start way back when. I'll also try not to date myself. So I won't give dates when I went to college, but I'll take you from that up to present and what I'm doing today. So I chose my major as, well, when I graduated, I was one of those very unfocused high school grads, not quite sure what I wanted to do with my life, and I don't know if I've figured that out yet, but we'll see. So when I actually attended Adelphi University in Garden City and graduated with a major in communications and business because I truly thought that I wanted to get in the film industry in some way, either being in front of the camera or behind it and making a career of that. So when I actually did graduate, I graduated during one of our recessions, I won't tell you which one, and jobs were very hard to find. And back then it was also prior to LinkedIn and all these great tools that you have today to find and search for jobs. So I was looking very hard to find a job and was lucky enough through networking, which I still believe today is the best way to find a job. It's not about everything you know, it's about who you know, and that always helps you in your career. So I was able to land a job in a very different industry than I'm in today, actually in the garment district. And I started out, believe it or not, in reception. And a face to the company, right, or for the clients coming in. Still, attempting to pursue either acting or something along the lines of my major and degree. But then what I did find is everything that I learned in school, or a good portion of it, I was able to apply no matter what position I was in. So I moved from that early stage of being the face of the company to operations, and then moved up the ranks to actually running the operations department, and then moving into sales. So I have both a sales and operations background, which I then decided, as I realized that I was not going to be a famous actor one day or behind the camera, I wanted to really focus on how I was going to take my career to the next level. So I stayed with that organization for about 8 years, and found both sides of the coin very challenging. Operations, from managing people, hiring, firing, all that kind of fun stuff. And then sales. How do you pitch your organization? How do you sell yourself? How do you get people interested in your product? So I realized that I did not love the garment industry, so I started out again on my search on how to take my experience that I learned in those 8 years and start to apply them, wanting to make more money, right? Grow my career, be able to, at that point, married and supply a good life for my children. I took the next step of, once again, networking. So I was out there networking. I was getting my resume out. I was going online. I was doing all that kind of fun stuff. And a ex-colleague of mine actually said, "Hey, Mike, I'm working with this really great company. I think you'd be fantastic. You need to come and interview." So I got the interview with then the president of the organization and was totally blown away by this individual, who I'm still in contact with today, and said, "I need to work for this woman. She just impressed me so much." A totally different industry, which is what I'm in today, which is business process outsourcing and document process outsourcing. And the organization that I joined, now I'm going to age myself, 18 years ago, started when I was 6, okay? I was in a very different role than I'm in today. So I took my operations background and my sales background, and I actually started out in their recruiting division. So what you do in business process outsourcing is we take part of companies' businesses and we run it for them, right? So they are actually giving us a piece of their organization to put our people on site and run that piece of business. And it's usually in the support areas that are not usually core to their business. So what I was running was the recruiting division. So I was hiring hundreds and thousands of people to be able to support all of our operations here in New York and abroad. So over the 18 years that I've been with the organization, my organization has grown from being a very small New York-centric company to now being in over 100 cities. We also joined Swiss Post because we were under a different name back when we were actually acquired. I helped in the acquisition. And now we're in 26 different countries. So we're the North American branch. So I progressed from being that recruiting mechanism, moving up into operations, moving up into field operations, becoming a division vice president. And at one point, I ran half the country from an operational standpoint. And then I was tapped by my CEO, who said, "You know what, Mike? I want you to run sales for the country." And I was like, "What? I run operations. Why would you want me in sales?" He said, "Mike, first of all, you're responsible for, I don't know, a few hundred people. Clients love you. You speak operations. And I want prospective clients to hear that because you speak from the heart." I said, "Okay, absolutely. I'll give it a shot." So I was the chief sales officer for North America for over 6 years. And I have to say that was an incredible experience, flying around the country, flying around the globe, interfacing with my counterparts all over the world, and helping to take our organization to where it is today. About a year and a half ago, I was tapped once again by my CEO, said, "We're creating a brand new division. It's called the Enterprise Client Group, and I want you to head it. And what I want you to do is I want you to take 40% of our organization, and I want you to run it from a business standpoint, from an operational standpoint, and also from a business development standpoint." So now everything for this part of our organization rolls up to me. I'm responsible for probably about 900 employees across the U.S., and I travel a lot for business. Enjoying what I do because I'm able to touch so many different industries. And I think that's probably, if you ask me what's a positive about my job, is we're not focused on any one specific vertical. We're all across different types of companies. So media and entertainment, legal, financial, and actually higher education as well too, plus others. But those are the main ones we focus on. And one of the other things that I've done throughout my career, and I promise I will wrap this up in the next 30 seconds, is I've always prided myself on mentoring, teaching, and helping people grow in their career path. Because when the day does come that I leave my organization, that will be my legacy. And I've enjoyed teaching so much from the get-go, and I've done it all throughout my career. And I put that up for my father because he actually was my superhero, and he was a professor. He was an adjunct professor, and he taught paramedics, and it doesn't get any cooler than that. And he got the teaching bug in me a long time ago. So I'm able now to take my 26 years of experience in business, whether it be on the operations side or on the sales side, and I've recently started teaching outside of our company. I've taught in our company for years, probably going on 10 years, but now outside as an adjunct professor for NYU. And I'm also starting to do seminars as well, too, going into organizations. And most of what I'm teaching is around business, or it's around management and leadership, which I just absolutely love. So that's my my commercial.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike. I was sitting here taking some notes about some of the themes that were coming through. So I'll be eager to hear if some of those same themes come through from our other panelists' remarks. More from Mike later during the questions and answers. Our next panelist today, I am happy to welcome, is with another SPS, CUNY SPS, Marissa Jobe. Marissa, take it away.
Thanks, Shannon. Good morning, guys. So like Mike and like many other students out there, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to major in college. In high school, I took AP chemistry and thought, oh, great, I'll be a chemistry major. But I took my first advanced calculus course in college, and I barely passed that, so decided that maybe chemistry wasn't the right way to go. I also took an AP psychology class in high school and then took abnormal psychology and started diagnosing myself every day. So decided maybe that wasn't the right path for me. I finally started taking a bunch of general education courses during my freshman year and realized that I really liked English literature. I liked reading about it. I liked writing about it. I liked journalism, and I liked the Spanish language. So I was fortunate enough to be at an institution where I could actually create my own major. So I majored in all three. During that time, I also took advantage of all of the internship opportunities that my school provided. So I interned at a local newspaper in the school town, and I also interned within the public affairs department within the institution. And that kind of drove my love for marketing and communications. And also, I really understood that I enjoyed working in higher education. So as far as my career is concerned, when I graduated from my undergrad career, it was a little difficult for me to find work. So I enrolled at Baruch College's Master's in Corporate Communication program while I worked part-time at Starbucks. And while I enjoyed working in Starbucks, it was only part-time, so I couldn't really make the money I wanted to. So I quickly transferred over to two part-time positions, one at St. John's University, working for their career change program at their Manhattan campus, which is within the Graduate School of Education. And I also worked at Baruch Stickland School of Graduate Admissions, processing applications. Once I graduated from my master's degree, I actually did find a full-time job outside of higher education. It was within entertainment-based PR, where I had the opportunity to work with so many different and wonderful clients, promoting mainly DVDs, which are kind of extinct by now, but they were around a lot back then, writing press releases, promoting TV shows. And while I loved that path, I still found a lack. I needed to work with students. I really enjoyed the student service aspect of what I did in college. So I actually found a job while I was working at St. John's University at CUNY SPS within their marketing division. And while it was a little different from what I was doing at St. John's University, which was mainly advising our students on how to switch their careers, their current careers, to become teachers, I realized that I was actually pretty decent at marketing communications. So I applied for the job at CUNY SPS, and I got it. And I started here 6 years ago as a marketing communications specialist, and I became a marketing manager about 2 years ago. And I absolutely love it. It's one of the most fulfilling and rewarding careers that I think I can imagine myself having. I get to work with faculty, staff, students, and alumni on a daily basis. I'm able to promote our wonderful portfolio of programs, both online and in person. So what that means is that I handle a lot of the advertising opportunities for the school, whether it's digital, social media, print, radio, I work on our social media campaigns. So if you guys out there have looked at our Facebook page or our Twitter channel or YouTube channel, I do help with that. Darian Robinson, who is our videographer, works with me on developing beautiful videos that feature our students and the rest of our constituents. And we really just try to have a very good time. And I'm not saying it's all, it's mostly fun, but it is hard work because there are a lot of competitors out there, and we really try to make ourselves distinct in the realm of higher education and specifically in the realm of online education. So we do a lot of research. We talk to a lot of other schools, which has the networking aspect that Mike was talking about, to see what the challenges are of promoting degree programs in this day and age, specifically to adult populations, and to try to enhance the online segment of our institution. But overall, I think it's an exciting field to pursue. It's always changing. Technology is always changing, which makes it great because you're ready to learn something new almost every 6 months or so. So I have to say that it's been a fantastic time so far at CUNY SPS, and I really, really have enjoyed it.
Thank you, Marissa.
Yeah.
I found it really interesting to hear about Marissa's career. I didn't know that she had worked in sort of a career development perspective some years ago.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear that we have a little bit of common ground in our backgrounds as well. So now, before we move on to our next panelist, I did want to remind everyone that if you have questions for our speakers today, please send them in whenever you can do so. At this point, we are going to move into our third panelist, our technology industry insider, Paul Gallo. Paul, go ahead and take it away.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I can definitely follow suit to the previous two panelists. I feel like I have a slight mix of both of some of the starting and ending of my where my career is at now. Originally, I thought I was going to be a doctor. Since I was about 10 years old, I was interested in being a doctor, and I took AP biology and AP calculus in high school. Was looking to get into the medical field. About midway through, I guess my first stint as an undergrad, I decided that medical was maybe not for me, and I sort of had been around technology and sort of got into creating web pages, back in the mid 90s, and to date myself a little as well. And that sort of piqued my interest. So then I switched over to computer science. Rather enjoyed it. I knew I didn't necessarily wanted to be a programmer, but I did like to be in the technology field, and a computer science degree at the time seemed the most appropriate to get me in there. Some personal things along the way, and had to step back and stop going to school for a little bit. But I did start working in the technology field. I had started getting some certifications in my field, and I started working in sort of computer support. Trudged along the way and had a few jobs in that role, and then finally started at a law firm in New York City. And I was there for a little over 9 years. Moved up in various different roles. So I was, I think, a senior technician when I was there, a systems engineer, finally ended up as the assistant manager for my department. And at that time, my interest got piqued even more to finish my degree. So I went back to school, one of the CUNY schools. It was called the CUNY Baccalaureate program at the time. Finished my undergraduate degree. Got piqued a little bit more as far as computer forensics and cybersecurity was concerned. I had some friends of mine that were in law enforcement. I sort of liked that direction. I toyed with the idea of becoming a federal agent in the FBI, but I went on to get my master's at John Jay. At the time, it was called the Forensic Computing. It focused computer forensics, a little bit of computer security. It was they wanted you to know when you clicked on a button in a particular piece of software, what is it doing? So that you have a good familiarity of the underlying processes, and you're not just using particular software to get your tasks done. So I have a very good understanding of computer file systems and where computer artifacts are. And so when I had graduated and got my master's degree, unfortunately at the law firm, that's sort of not their business. I made some really great contacts, had some really, really good friends, and I really, really loved working there. Just unfortunately, my career was taking me in a different direction, leaning more towards the forensic side. So I had networked with one of my colleagues from grad school, and he started working at Deloitte, a few months. So I talked to him, said, yes, they're still hiring, they're looking. I said, that's excellent, that's great. So I came in, met with the team, all the way up to the partner that was in charge of the group. Thought everything was awesome, and I started working there January 2012. That particular job afforded me some luxury of traveling, similar to Mike. I had to travel for clients. There was some aspect of where I was also just based in the office, working with our Office of General Counsel, working on any particular matters that data needed to be collected and preserved in such a manner that when things go to trial, evidence is preserved and can be shown that it was captured correctly. So did that for about 2 years at Deloitte. Then I moved on when I was at my next company, sort of managing the engagements from the forensics perspective. So I was sort of in charge of making sure all the forensics aspects of any particular project were taken care of. A lot of these were large projects, have hundreds and hundreds of custodians, and custodians are just simply like the users that may have the data that's relevant. And then, from there, I went back out in the field when I was at that same company, and I was actually the hands-on person traveling for clients, going across the country, even into Canada, collecting all the data, performing some maybe basic forensic analyses that need to be performed, depending on the scope of work. Little grueling at first, with all the travel. And so I decided to try to seek something a little bit more local, see if I can find anything in my state now of New Jersey. And I did a little more networking again. One of the attorneys that I used to work with at the law firm is an attorney at my current company. So I had sort of asked, hey, I see this particular position, what do you think? And he really loves the company that he's at. So I came in, interviewed, I met the whole team, and I'm very, very happy to say that I'm ecstatic. The team I directly work with is great. The company I'm at now is great. So it's a really good, I feel like a symbiotic relationship that I'm able to do the things for my career, do the things that I want currently, and I'm able to provide them with great work and great service. So that's sort of, I didn't start out doing the computer stuff, but I went back to school, got my various degrees, working in the industry now in forensics, and my team now is specifically the global cybersecurity and incident response team. So I do most of the forensics for the company, and that could be any kind of HR disputes, if someone is any potential litigation, if even involved in certain cybersecurity incidents. I work with our folks that try to detect hackers that are getting into the company, or trying to, if people are familiar with phishing, where people are trying to get credentials and try to get you to click on certain links. So we do some investigating with that and try to mitigate that and protect our vast users and agents that work at our firm. I think I should run it down for me.
Thank you very much, Paul. It was interesting to hear that you sort of had to start in a completely different area, and then you moved through computer science and then sort of took even more of a specialist role in what you're doing today. So thank you for sharing. Something that came up, I think, in each of the narratives that the three of you have given was networking. I'm not surprised to hear that networking was a part of everyone's career success. So I hope that is a theme that comes through to our attendees today. It's something we always talk about when we're meeting with job seekers and talking with our students and graduates about their career growth. And I think that it's an important thing, even if you're not actively looking for a job, to always be trying to build your network. So now that we've heard from all three of our panelists, I want to encourage our attendees to be sending those questions in. I'm going to go ahead and start going through some of the questions, but please don't be shy. Send us your questions because our panelists are here and they're captive. So let's take advantage of this opportunity. So I'll go ahead and get things started out. And this is a question that I always like to ask when I'm meeting new people and talking to people about their careers. I'll let each of you take this question. Let's go ahead and start with Paul, since he recently had the floor. What do you like most about your job, and what do you like least?
Given some of the things I've had in my career, I've had to travel and whatnot, I sort of do like the ability that I have sort of a schedule every day. I come in, I'm at one base of operations. I get to see my fabulous colleagues. I do have some that do work remotely. But I get to work with them on a pretty much daily basis. I'm able to do the work that really interests me. I sort of like to tinker and figure things out, and this particular job happens to afford that possibility for me, which is great. There's not much that I really don't like, thankfully, about my current job. I would say that the least thing I like is maybe the commute. Just the traffic and getting to the office. There you go. So other than that, I really, things are great.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Let's move to Mike Mannix. What do you like most about what you do, and what do you not like most?
Oh, wow. This is such a great question. Well, I think I kind of tapped on it a little bit earlier. One of the things that I love the most about my job is the diversity that comes with it from all the different industries. I get to touch so many different industries, get to learn so much about the inner workings of those companies, and what is so great about the position that I'm in, whether I'm on the operations side or the sales side, our client base are usually the decision makers within the organization. So I'm dealing with C-levels, so CEOs, CFOs, CAOs, CIOs, all those folks. There's more C's than there are letters in the alphabet now today. And I absolutely love is that diversity and being able to learn what's important to them and how we're able to bring solutions that make their lives better. The other piece I touched on earlier too is I absolutely love people development. And I've been doing that throughout my career, helping people move up in their career, being mentor for our internship academy, teaching. That all that has been enabled through my organization, and I absolutely love that as well too. To turn to the flip side of the coin, that's always a tricky question. I would have to say it's probably because I am dealing from an operational perspective, is sometimes getting dragged down into the minutia of a minor client complaint, right? But in that client's world, it is the biggest thing that's going on and an issue that needs to be handled immediately. And I totally get it, and we're all over it. But sometimes it's like, really? That's what the problem is? Okay. Having to be dragged down and dealing with that. But other than that, I think back to what I was saying, I think the diversification, being able to touch so many different industries is what I like best.
Great. Thank you. Marissa, what about you? What is something that you really like a lot about your work and something that you don't like as much?
Sure. I love that I have the opportunity to be creative almost every single day. But I also love that I have the opportunity to work with our students and alumni. They actually drive that creativity. Our school wouldn't be anywhere where it is now without our students. So our marketing campaigns and our outreach efforts really wouldn't be anything without them. One thing I don't like as much, and this is, I think, industry-wide for marketing and public relations and communications, is that sometimes we just don't have the resources needed to drive some of our campaigns, whether that be people or money. But then that also, puts me on the other flip side, is that when we don't have the resources and we need to be extra creative. So we need to find ways to do what we need to do with less money. But it also, we have to think really hard and work with our team and see how to get things done. But overall, it's usually a very positive experience regardless.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. We're getting some really good questions. Some of them are getting to be a little bit specific for our panelists, so I'll jump right into it. Mike, we had gotten a question. I don't know if this is necessarily for you or for Marissa. Maybe both of you can provide some perspective. An individual had been living on the West Coast and had developed a favorable career, things changed, the position didn't end up being as successful, and now the individual has moved here to the New York City area and is sort of starting from the ground up.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for someone looking to jumpstart a new career?
Sure, absolutely. It's okay. Thank you. It's such a common question, especially even when you're not moving from city to city, even if you're just changing careers, right? A lot of people say, I'm so done with my job, I'm out of here, I can't take it anymore. Or there's so many layoffs that are happening now. Companies are just changing, they're shrinking, so people get laid off, and a lot of them say, maybe this is my opportunity to change careers. But how do I do that? How do I go about that? And I think that is what kind of stalls people a lot, and it's that fear of change, and how do I get over that, and how do I get to the next step? And you have to take baby steps. First of all, number one, you need to be patient with yourself. It's not going to happen overnight. So the second thing you need to do is you need to make your own brand. You need to be your own best advocate. When I was hiring individuals, I actually hired people, and I'm going to tell you something that is very, very key. First of all, attitude is 80% of the job. No ifs, ands, or buts. If someone walks into my office and they might not have the full skill set, if they come in with the right attitude, positive, they are presenting themselves well, they really are highlighting all the areas of what made them successful and how that translates. That's what you really need to do in an interview, is not just focus on what you did, but how it translates to the new position that you're going for. And then I think the next step is, how do I start to build my network? LinkedIn, by far, I think, is one of the best tools that's out there, because I can tell you, as an executive level, I sit on our executive board. I get over 200 plus emails a day. So I'm not necessarily going to look at an email from someone I don't know. But, and I'm giving out a little secret, if all of a sudden an IM pops up on my LinkedIn, you see that. You do respond. If people are trying to network, or you see who you're connected in with in that network, you would be surprised to see how many folks are actually connected and can make a warm introduction for you. And then I think the next piece of that is also to try to get into, depending on the industry, get into networking groups within those industries. So depending on what industry or business you're in, there are actually organizations around those different types of verticals that people go to network. And I would highly recommend that, because I feel nothing that takes away the face-to-face. Going up, shaking someone's hand, looking them in the eye and saying, "Hi, I'm Mike Mannix. Would love to talk to you for 5 minutes and tell you what I can do for you." That type of thing.
Great. Thank you.
I think you said it all.
Marissa's shaking her head yes in agreement. I think he probably covered what she was going to say. Let me flip things over to Paul. I have a question that I think you probably would be good at addressing. This person says, I am an information systems major. What aspects other than this degree related to information systems are employers looking for? Paul, can you answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, in my career as, support and even in the forensics field, what ultimately helps is getting some underlying certifications as well, so that you sort of have the broad knowledge by showing the degree that you have. But you show some specifics when you do have a particular degree, particular certification in a particular area. It just sort of helps identify that, you're a subject matter expert in this particular area. And that can help, get your foot in the door when an employer looks at your resume, sort of sees, hey, this is the degree grade, it's the general area. Oh, I see some good specifics with these particular certifications. And I'll even echo something that Mike said. I like that, that would bring someone in the door for me. And then that attitude that they might have. So if they're still sort of just breaking in, don't have the exact, 100% skill set, but they are, positive attitude. They look like they're a go-getter. You can tell they're hungry for knowledge. Then, having that degree and having that certifications will get you in the door, and then hopefully round out with the good interview performance too.
Great, thank you, Marissa. What are some of the most crucial soft skills for someone in your industry?
Obviously, the ability to communicate in all forms of mediums. So writing, public speaking, also, well, nowadays, like knowing social media. Social media has been crucial to our industry, and honestly, for CUNY SPS, like that's how we have been able to build our student community, since most of our courses are offered online and not many students come to campus. We've been able to foster and develop a community through social media. Um, Honestly, for like technical skills lately, knowing how to work on websites, knowing how to manage CMS, knowing how to develop email, knowing how to look at Google Analytics and analyze some of the numbers and data that are coming through, to look at your website and to see if the performance is doing as well as you want. The same thing can be used like for advertising campaigns. So being able to really look and analyze the data and make firm decisions based on what you're seeing. Those are really some of the most important skills, I think, for marketing communication majors nowadays.
Great. Thank you, Marissa. Okay, so we've got a bunch more questions coming in. Thank you, everybody. I know we won't be able to address everything, but we've got like 6 more minutes, so we can certainly do a couple more. Okay, here's a question for everybody. I'll start with Mike. What was the biggest challenge you faced when trying to first gain employment in your field?
Wow. So, well, I'm going to answer that in 2 ways. So the first challenge that I faced, and I think I talked about that when I graduated in a recession. So there were not jobs out there, so to speak. So I literally had to take an entry-level job just to get my foot in the door. And that's what you have to do sometimes. Sometimes you have to take one step forward to take, 3 or 4 steps, one step backwards to take 3 or 4 steps forward, right? So that, I think, was the biggest challenge then. For me, my biggest challenge when I transferred from one industry to another was getting over, I think, the fear factor, because I am totally changing industries. I was coming from a company I probably would have never been fired from. Every time I was about to leave, they threw more money at me and like, no, stay. But I knew I needed to leave. And then I joined an organization which was so different from what I was in before. And I think getting over that, that fear of failing was my first hurdle. And then once I just said, you know what, let me just go in there using that 80% attitude type of mentality, going positive, learning as much as I could right out of the gates, and then, but also starting from the ground up. So learning everything I could about what my team did before I tried to manage my team. And I think that was my biggest challenge in the beginning, and then it just took off from there.
Great. I like that perspective.
Yeah.
Marissa, what do you think was the biggest challenge for you in getting started?
Like Mike, I also graduated during a recession period. So that's why I started off at Starbucks, and I actually became very comfortable at Starbucks. And I think that's one of the things that it's difficult to overcome, being so comfortable in a job and the fear of leaving it. But I think one of the things that helped me was talking to other people within the industry that I wanted to pursue, and they were able to give me tips on how to present myself, what websites to look at, what certifications I can obtain to help me do better within this career, even before I enter it. So that was extremely helpful. But I think the level of comfort and the willingness to go outside of that comfort zone is really important, to take those challenges and those steps. And know, like Mike said, that you can probably do well in the career that you want to pursue. You just have to, try.
Great. Paul, let me turn this over to you, but I know that you, you were able to sort of make a career shift from, the technical support work that you had done in the law firm and then moving into the type of role that you've had now more recently. What was the biggest challenge for you in making that shift?
In my particular industry, it's a lot of, because it is very highly specific and there's certain processes that need to be followed. So it's, how do I sort of, prove myself that I know what I know and can do the job at hand. So I feel like we keep echoing the same sentiments, but networking. It was able to, like, I joined an association that was specific to my field. So I was able to meet some individuals, and I joined this as a student member. So I was able to network and meet some folks while I was still getting my master's degree, and sort of get like at least my mind in that area, to meet some folks that work in that area, and then also some, any particular, whether it's one-day training events or week-long training events, because you also meet folks there as well. So you do a lot of networking to be able to get you sort of a good base in your network, so that, hey, I'm looking for a particular job. Do you know anybody? And then once they have a level of comfortability with you, and obviously they know some of your skill set because they were with you either in training or a particular event, and then they might be a little more agreeable to either help them personally, refer you to a friend or an associate of theirs that may be looking. So I think that's kind of important as well, is to sort of get your foot in the door there with some networking, especially when you're changing that industry. I was lucky enough that the person I networked with was in my grad school. So we were very familiar with each other and sort of got me in the door. And once I had the interview, I took the reins and took care of it myself.
Great. Thank you very much. We've got, it looks like 1 more minute, so I probably, let me go through one more quick question, and then we'll wrap things up today. It seems like we could probably go on for a while longer. It's so interesting to hear from all 3 of you and get your different perspectives. Okay, let me ask this one, and I think I may already know the answer for some of you. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing? Mike, I'm looking at you, so why don't you start?
What would I be doing? So my dream job is I would either probably be the lead singer in a rock band or an actor.
Okay.
But in reality, what I would probably be doing is, and I think this is what will be, in the future for me when I finally do leave business, is I want to teach. I want to continue to help. I think there's no greater gift than passing on your knowledge and helping to impact someone's life in a positive way. And that's one of the things that my father always taught me. And the true measure, he said, the true measure of success is not all the things that you have, but the amount of lives that you touch. And when my father passed, unfortunately, due to cancer, it literally, I saw 3 nights of wakes with people lining up out the doors, down the street, around the block. And I had people come up to me that he had taught 40 years ago and said, your father changed my life. And that moment I knew my father was the most successful man I would ever meet. And I think that is probably it will be my career path in the future, and my dream job. Yeah, that's something I would like to do a lot more of.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Marissa, what do you think you'd be doing if you weren't working in this role?
So like Mike, I would have my dream job would actually be a kickboxing instructor.
Nice.
I really enjoy it, but I know that's not a lucrative career. But when I was younger, I really always wanted to actually become a professor as well, and I wanted to teach comparative literature. So that is something I might pursue later on in life, get a PhD and teach literature both in Spanish and in English to college students.
Great, thank you. And Paul, why don't you finish out this one? If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you think you'd do?
It's something that I've got into later in my life, and my wife knows that I'm really into craft beer. So for myself, and it has a level of sort of geekiness to it, but to be a brewer, there's so many different approaches to creating a beer, and you have all the different ingredients. It's sort of like a chef and a chemist, sort of having a baby together and make a brewer. So for me, the love that goes into it when you craft something and then you sell it on the market and folks are trying it and they give you feedback and what worked, what didn't work, engaging with folks, and that whole thing seems very interesting to me. And I think if I wasn't in such a technical role and enjoying what I'm doing now, that perhaps that'd be something I'd pursue.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. That question was something that I came up with myself, and I like to end these kinds of panels with that question because I think it's useful for not only for the panelists to sort of think about what their career dreams might be, but I think it's useful for our attendees to know that your career is never sort of at that stopping point, and you always can keep in mind that there may be changes for you in the future and growth in different ways. So to keep in mind that, whatever is happening today may not be forever, and it shouldn't be. So I hope that everyone has enjoyed hearing from our panelists today. I certainly enjoyed hearing from our business, technology, and communications industry insiders. You will get a real quick survey on your screen when the webinar is ended today. So I encourage all of you to please take that. And if you're able to join us for a future program, we hope that you'll be able to do so. I hope that this gave you a good start to your Friday and that everyone has a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Great. Thank you.